Welcome to another episode of Vital Doc Talk. And today on the show, we have Dr. Kevin Fong. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Vlad. Happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me, and I'm excited to talk a little bit about marketing from at least the physical therapy side. So let's go. Let's fire away.
Awesome. I love it. So why don't we dive right in then with your background. So what inspired you to be a physical therapist? Why is it the career path for you? And, let's get into that story.
Yeah. I mean, not to bring tears to people's eyes, but I really did this because I love helping people. Understand this wasn't a linear path. I started actually in the world of marketing, corporate messaging and positioning, as a lowly intern coming right out of undergrad with a business major. And there was a point where I dabbled in public relations and channel marketing. And man, it was painful to get up out of bed every day. Nothing against people in advertising or marketing or PR, anything on the comm side, but it just wasn't it wasn't my bag. So I actually went back and did a lot of what a lot of people don't do. Is I listened to my parents, and they said, growing up, we actually thought you would go into healthcare because you used to take care of your grandfather so much. And so I thought about it. Don't cry. But I thought about it and I said, I'll give it a shot. Anything is worth a try. So I went and shadowed as many people in the healthcare industry as I could. And that was medical doctors and orthopedists and occupational therapists, physical therapists. And then I loved it to the point where I narrowed it down. Physical therapy is what I wanted to do. And so I took the leap of faith. My girlfriend, now wife at the time, was really supportive. So a huge supportive cast is key. But I took the leap of faith and went in, and it required me to go back to school for a bunch of science courses, which really tested my faith and conviction. But at the end of the day, I went to Southern California and hung out there for 3 years and got a doctorate in physical therapy. I guess the rest is history. Now I'm practicing. I was a clinical director at a good private practice orthopedic place, and I loved it. Got great experience. Got my hands dirty, working with a bunch of great clients and patients. And then there was a time where it was time to evolve, and I went to work for myself. So in the past couple of years, I've started my own sole proprietorship, and hopefully it'll amalgamate or it'll change to something even better very soon post COVID.
Awesome. And that is phenomenal. I love that. I love the story. I think that, a lot of times if you look back at yourself, as this is the cheesiest egotistical thing I'm about to say, but I was listening to an interview of myself yesterday and I never do this, guy, so don't judge me too hard. But basically, because I was like, who is this guy, Vlad? Right. And then if you study yourself, you'll kind of give yourself the clues of, hey, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what I really enjoy doing. So I was kind of trying to look at it from an outside point of view. Not that I'm so into myself, I'm just looking in the mirror all day long. What I have is just a lot of hard work, and that's it. Anybody can achieve it. So, so it sounds like you did that. So that's awesome. And then, so for, up and coming doctors out there or people that are maybe in a place where they want to revisit the path they want to go into, I think that's a really useful thing is if you have an interview, maybe you're not as lucky as me, asking family, asking friends, they know you very well. It's not always, if I would have listened to my parents, I would have been a dentist right now and I would have hated it. My father, he growing up, he was like, Vladimir, we're immigrants. So he's like, Vladimir, I give you options. You can be anything you want to be, doctor or lawyer. I'm like, can't do that. But I think they do know you very well and they want the best for you. And, listening to them and listening to that sphere can give you really good clues, so that's awesome.
I think so. And I would say every turning point that I had in my career, I'm trying to stay young, but my career up to this point, it has been changed and progressed through self-reflection, as cheesy as that does sound. So while valuing input from everybody in your inner circle is great, there's nothing that beats self-reflection. And that's what made me, or that's what, created an idea that I'm going to go work for myself is through self-reflection. It's now understanding, you found the industry or the career that you want to do for forever. Now it's about, what are you going to do to make yourself even happier? Self-fulfillment.
For sure. Definitely agree. And, whenever people talk to me about mentors, et cetera, I 100% think that they're useful. Like I have a ton over here. I have a lot of, very successful mentors. And I do also think at the same time, though, it's useful to have multiple, because then you'll have a very diverse point of view, just like this podcast, right? We have all these different types of doctors, and then it's up to you, the listener, to figure out, well, what applies best for me? That's the best natural and organic thing. Whenever I'm talking to successful doctors, right, they always do the thing that like resonates with them the most. So with that being said, Kevin, let's get into the marketing segment of the show. What marketing channel resonates the best with you, has worked the best for you to date?
I think it's really difficult to choose one, and that's kind of where I'm at in my own practice. Is I still feel like the general population, your average patient, is pretty smart now. They're not just going to trust a referral word of mouth. That may direct them in the right, in the right path, but they're still going to fact check you on Instagram and YouTube and do a Google search on you and Yelp you. So I kind of think that there's a large equal-based importance on all the platforms, to the point where you have a presence. Now, I have colleagues that really specialize in one avenue. Instagram is where their passion is. That's where people will find them. That's where they'll like niche down with the Instagram population. And that's an eventual revenue stream for them, in addition to practicing in person. But that's their route. My route is, I just feel like it's really important to check off all those buckets in terms of like the platforms that patients will either fact check you or actually find you in the first place.
I like that point of view, right? And I also want to get super tactical. So maybe you can think about one you really want to get into that you've seen like the most benefit from. But I do think that the first thing we do whenever we talk to a doctor as a client is we'll take a look and see, do they have a Yelp? Do they have Google reviews, right? Sometimes we'll talk to doctors and they've been around for 10 plus years. They don't have more than 5 Google reviews. And it's like, that's crazy, right? Like you got to have at least 20 on there. Got to have at least 15 Yelp reviews. And then obviously you made a great point, do a couple of YouTube videos. So they say that is called omnipresence in the marketing world, where you're, pushing all the angles. And I think it's good to have a solid foundation. At the same time though, I think it is important to look at customer acquisition costs and say, okay, I'm paying whatever, $10 a lead here from this source. This source is $50. I think if you get dependent on one, it can be dangerous. But at the same time, if you're kind of doing everything okay, it'll work, especially if you got really good systems and referrals. But there should be one that you really like. Is there one that like works the best for you, or that you've noticed has been like the leader? They're probably not all each getting you 2 leads a day.
No. And to be honest, I wish I had a better funnel system through my website, like having an ebook like yourself, right? So I can track the people that are accessing my site and then create them into potential leads. But the website is pretty much what comes up when I ask new folks, how did they find me? They just Google search me. So I haven't paid a dime into SEO. I've done some homework on SEO. And I've done what I can as a lowly, medical professional and not the expert like yourself. But that is where I gravitate to. And so that's where I've been focusing a lot of my attention, is on like the messaging and positioning around the website.
This is gold, ladies and gentlemen, because now we have a chance to go into SEO, which we have, in the history of not that we have a big history of 25 episodes, we have not talked about SEO to date. We've talked about Facebook, we talked about Instagram, referrals, et cetera, which are all useful and they all work. I'm not one of these blindsided people, but I did write, SEO for doctors for a reason, because it had a huge impact on some of my clients. And, I think everybody can use it. Everybody can benefit, all doctors. So let's get into that element of it. And this is probably going to be a 2-part series, Kevin, because I'm going to have another doctor I actually trained on SEO. Dr. Paul come on soon, and he can talk about that as well. And so this can be version 1. And also, I think I did an interview with Dr. Heather in another episode. She built her own site, and she's really good at the aspect. But a lot of times when I talk to doctors about SEO, they're mainly self-taught. So let's figure out what have you done in terms of SEO? Have you studied anything? Have you just been like, okay, I'm very practical about it, and I know that the words need to be there for what I want to rank for?
Yeah, unfortunately, I'd say the latter, right? Which is I my guess, not to pat myself on my back, I think that's leaps and bounds ahead of most
Yes,
docs,
it is. You'd be
right? It's
surprised.
just to Google what is SEO and how do I improve it. So yeah, I've done the quick search. I've tried to go into Google Analytics and been incredibly frustrated and confused with what I'm looking at because that's like a different language to me. And so I've stepped back and done the more basic approach, which is, I'll make sure that I know what kind of messaging gravitates towards my, perfect patient avatar. And I will make sure that my message and the key phrases that I use are consistent throughout the page, not to overload them too much to make it seem false, but to make sure that it's in my, headings and subheadings, and it's through my pages, and I tag my images on my website with some of those key phrases. Things like that are the approach that I'm taking. I'm happy to delve deeper, but I want to turn it over to you because you're also the expert, and so I'd love to selfishly use this time for free
Of
advice.
course, of course. And you guys, I do an hour free every Thursday from 10:30 to 11:30. But I'm doing an interview with Kevin today, so it's going to go a little bit over time, anyways. But it's fine. But so I do an hour free anyway, so that's fine, Kevin. And I'm always happy to help guys. I would say, because our mission, by the way, is to empower doctors, whether it's free, paid, etc. It doesn't matter to me, because I think at the end of the day, it's like if you're an amazing doctor, you're going to get insanely busy. Like, we're getting bigger and bigger community members. And then eventually we're going to just have to start charging more, like, sorry, but the people that pay me, they're going to have to come first. Anyways. So yeah, Kevin, the first thing when it comes to SEO is the content part, right? So there's 3 elements we teach in SEO, and this is in my book. So there's content, link building, and technical. Now, most doctors, in fact, I kid you not, there's a doctor on the show, and I'm not going to oust her, but basically she's been doing, her website for, she has a lot of experience. And so basically she wasn't even on page 2 for her keyword because she didn't optimize her page. Nowhere on her page did it say, and I'm going to give you an example. We're in Seattle right now, Seattle brain surgeon, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I went on her page. I was like, oh, hey, let's pretend I'm Mr. Google. I'm looking at her page. Oh, what does this person want to rank for? What does this person want to rank for? On her homepage, it did not say Seattle brain surgeon, right? Or, New York psychiatrist, right? If you don't have this on your homepage, Google is never going to find you. Now you've got to make that what they call an H1. That's like the biggest piece of code you can use. And that's how Google's going to be like, oh, this is the biggest piece of code. This is like a billboard telling me, hey, Google, I'm a Seattle psychiatrist, or, and that's the first thing that a lot of doctors don't even think about. I'd say maybe 50%. And it's so common, and they'll look at me like, what the hell? And I'll be like, hey, you did that. And that's the content part of it. Now it gets even more deeper, obviously, for content. Length matters. You want to take a look at your competitors. There's something called a meta title and a meta description, which, would take me like 3 minutes to show somebody. But basically you got to have that with your keywords. But yeah, so Kevin, it sounds like you're definitely ahead of the game. Sometimes locally, by the way, local doctors don't even do any SEO. Yeah.
And I think that's kind of crazy. As successful, so many people before us have said it, but as successful and busy as you can be, like you are, it's a disservice to your business if you don't give some attention to, marketing, especially SEO, in the world that we live in today. I know myself, like, it's hard to swallow some of this advice that you give because, I created my own website as well. And so this is my baby. This is something that I formulated over time. And it's taken me like way too long to do because I didn't have any background in web design. And so I've nitpicked every single word out, especially in a past in marketing. And so for somebody to come along and say, your website's great, but it's not optimized for SEO, it's a hard pill to swallow, because then I have to change some of the verbiage that I've used and some of the messaging. But you got to play the game, right? If you're not going to play the game, nobody's going to see these elegant messages on your website anyway when you're stuck in page 5 of, physical therapy in San Francisco, which is where I'm based.
There is my favorite joke, right? How do you hide a dead body? You put it on the second page of Google. No one will ever look there, right? So either you're on the first page, or, ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't really matter. So Kevin, content, it sounds like you've been smart enough, which a lot of doctors, this is a big tip, is make sure your homepage in the biggest possible code option is called H1. It's bigger than Google counts it as bigger than the biggest text. You would have text 100, but if it's the H1 tag, if you use that on your code and it still has your keyword there, that'll be more important. So, make sure your H1, your meta title, meta descriptions, they have the keywords you want to rank for your homepage, at least. If you're a Seattle psychiatrist, you better have that in there. What else did you do for your content? What else did you do for your SEO?
Well, like I said, I think it's important to tag like images that you're putting on your website, sub pages that you're putting on your website, right? Like your little descriptors with the same messaging in it, similar to like your main headings and subheadings. So, a pretty rough scrub, but making sure that the easy stuff you check off your list. That, as well as, it goes a little beyond SEO, but making sure that I have like constantly updated live content tagging back, linking back to my page, which is, I think one of the recommendations that you were going to give it to.
Yeah. And yeah, you got to make sure. So there's 3 elements of SEO. There's content, right? We haven't gotten into technical, which basically you got to have a fast site. No one's going to wait 4 seconds, right? They are, right? But it's going to really, most people are not going to like that. And so you're going to start getting drop off. So the prospective patient that's waiting 4 seconds, that's like being late. Like in my other episode, when, I was with my girlfriend and we went to get her, I supported her and, she was on an appointment, whatever. The doctor was like an hour late. She was like, "Oh, sorry." After that, my girlfriend was not going to see that doctor anymore. Right. So it's like, that's the same thing. If they're waiting for more than 3 seconds, it's getting to the 4 second range. It's like you're being late for the initial. Your first impression is everything. Right. So it's the technical part. You want to have no broken pages, no, slow times. Good. It's easy for people to actually navigate the site, because Google, if they can't find a page, they're not going to rank you for it on their search engine. Mm-hmm. So those are all important things. That's like a high level technical part. And then last but not least is link building. And Kevin, I'm willing to bet you probably haven't done a lot of link building. Have you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Are you referring to it? You just got to correct me on the definition.
Have you gotten links from other websites to your website?
Yeah. And that's kind of why it's important to have this checklist, right? That you have a YouTube page and a LinkedIn page and a Facebook and an Instagram, so that there's a way that somebody can actually go from one platform to the other. But that way it also helps index your site, because that's all this content that you're updating. Because realistically, people don't update a website every single day, but they do post something new on Instagram or YouTube or all the above, write a new blog post, and that'll help with your website's presence.
I love this, guys. Kevin. Our VP of operations, Evan, actually is like this. Done SEO for 16 plus years. So Evan, you're talking like Kevin. Yeah, Kevin, you're talking like Evan right now. But yeah, Kevin is giving you guys great tips. Kevin is talking about link building, and so link building is basically like a voting system, right? So first, if you imagine that you're Google, first you're going to want to see the content. You're going to want to see, oh, the Seattle psychiatrist has that on her homepage. Okay, cool. She has that, and she has content there. It's kind of the same amount as competitors, so she probably knows her stuff. Then, do other healthcare sites link to their site, right? Like, imagine you're going through Facebook, and then one of your friends is like, "Oh, this is a funny photo from this website," and they link to it on Facebook, right? That's basically a vote that Facebook is giving to that other photo website. So that's how Google knows this photo is better than the other ones that aren't linked to, right? So you've got to do this on all the other sources. Link from Instagram, your Instagram about profile, to your website. LinkedIn. These are called directory links. These are directory sites. Then there's guest blog posts, podcasts. Basically, any online source that looks like promotion and PR is a great way for you to get links. Last but not least, I would say that, Kevin, you've actually done a fantastic job building links. Most doctors don't even think about that. So I think you know a very good basic level of link building. So
yeah, and I think there's a point to highlight a little bit more from what you just mentioned, which is the true value of a partnership. We all know like referrals are gold, right? And so the more people you know in the industry and peripheral industries is really important. But that actually can tie back into your digital presence. Like, for example, what you and I are doing right now. I very much am going to take every opportunity to plug this somehow on my website. So it's like a thumbs up and a vote for you, and then for me as well. For the same reasons why I've built partnerships with gym owners in the area, so that their websites say, if you're looking for a PT, here's a list of resources, and my name and link happens to be there. Right? So it's about like, I can't find like an amazing analogy right now. But it's so important to be able to have your presence all over the place, because you never know, like Google does their own indexing and has their own algorithms, but also you never know where people are going to find you.
yeah, I can actually grab the analogy there actually. So basically think about it this way. In the real world, right? If somebody is talking to me, right, for example, like, hey, Vlad, who do you know that's great at physical therapy, right? I'd be like, oh, go talk to Dr. Kevin Fong, right? So what I've done is I've pointed to Kevin Fong and I've given him a referral, right? So and because Kevin imagine Kevin, he has like a huge network, right? Like everyone in the world, like go talk to, Dr. Kevin Fong. They're all linking to him. They're all pointing to him as a referral. So online, that's basically how that works, right? Like a link is like a point. It's like a referral to this other website, and you're giving somebody else credibility.
Got it.
So
Yeah.
that's the analogy there, right? So it's like the bigger your network online, so you can use your offline network, right, to build your online network. That's why good link building is a lot like good business development and good networking. And they go hand in hand, good PR, right? If Oprah says, hey, listen to Dr. Kevin Fong, right? That's going to give him a lot of business. At the same time, right? That's like networking, right? But at the same time, online, if Oprah.com links to his website, same thing. Google's going to look at that.
So can I ask you, I know this is an interview, but
sure. Yeah. Any question you want.
You just mentioned the Oprah example, and that's priceless, right? Because Oprah's got such a presence. Does it matter who links to me in terms of how high up they are in their search? Okay.
Yeah, right. So just like in real life, right? Oprah's huge. She has a lot of, like, let's say you're running for president, right? Or whatever, or we can just use it as a referral, right? If she tells her offline network to go do business with you and go, check out this physical therapist, they're going to do it. Online, exact same thing. Google judges people by how, or not people, Google judges websites by how big they are and their followings. So for example, right, if it's not only going to get you natural traffic to your site, it's also going to give you something called link juice. So Oprah's site has a lot of link juice. Also, what's we built a link cost calculator actually to, if you want to get more technical, I can show you later. But basically, there's also niche relevancy, right? So if random person, random couch guy, he says, oh, go check out Dr. Kevin Fong, versus random doctor says, check out Dr. Kevin Fong, right? Google's going to be like, oh, that's a doctor. That's in the healthcare field. They're very relatable. I'm going to give this person more credit for the referral versus this couch person, right? So when you're building links, right? Facebook is great. The only thing with Facebook is everybody's on Facebook. So it's like an easy link to get, right? However, getting that Oprah, getting, Red Cross, if anybody out there can get a Red Cross backlink, that they're huge in the healthcare industry, right? This is why we're niched in healthcare, because it's our biggest focus. Because when I build a link from Oprah to you, Dr. Kevin, and then another doctor comes to me, then I can go back to my friend, Oprah.com, and I can say, hey, can you give this doctor a link? And so our costs of operations are going down, but the value is still there. And so like doctors are investing in us and they're investing in our link building network, right? So yeah, it's just like if you were to do business with Oprah in real life, right? Now every person she's connected to, it makes her more powerful.
Got it. That's good to know. At this point, I thought it was like a volume game, I thought the more links you had, the better. But it sounds like there's an importance to the quality as well.
It's both, right? So it's just like in real life, if you're networking, right? I would, no offense, Kevin, right? Oprah would be more valuable than you in my network. She'd give me more business, right? So if I could have 10 of her, that would be gold, right?
Yeah.
Now, if it would be 1,000 of you, maybe that would give me more business. But that's how link building works. So it's calculated. And I don't, I'd be in jail if I knew like the exact algorithm.
Sure.
But we know that stronger websites give a lot more authority. This is also called authority building, by the way. So we went over content, guys. We went over link building. We even tackled a little bit of the technical stuff, right? You don't want to have no broken pages, no, slow pages. You can use websites like GT Metrics or Google Page Speed Insights, and they'll give you a lot of different tips on how to improve your site. And I think one thing, Kevin, that I don't know if you've done this, but a lot of doctors, we spoke about this actually before the show, is they look at their whole thing like, okay, I'm a doctor, I get paid for my time hourly, right? But I think the mindset that makes the doctors that I work with that are very successful and wealthy, they look at their time as, yeah, this is priced the highest, but then it's the system that you should be getting paid for, the marketing system, etc. In your world, right, what have you seen the most successful doctors do versus like the least successful ones when it comes to building great business systems?
I mean, if we could take a step back and talk, not about systems, but on a broader perspective, more bird's eye.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's honestly, to be really consistent in what you produce, right? Nothing has to be perfect to be on the web, but I think oftentimes people say, okay, I'm going to put my heart and soul into YouTube, and so YouTube videos are what I'm going to create. And then they create something that's drastically different on like an Instagram platform. And then their website will be geared towards, more academic speak. And so a different population will gravitate towards them. So I just think like the messaging, it still goes back to my background, but messaging and positioning is so key in terms of consistency. That's how you get on brand, is like a hot term, but that's how you get on brand. And that goes a long way in terms of getting the hot leads or the population that you want to work with. In terms of systems, if we're talking about, honestly, like I'm working in a microcosm, right? I provide physical therapy on like a boutique level, which means low volume, but high quality. And so those that are around me do the same. The systems that they build give the touch and feel of the boutique provider. That means, we're following up via email constantly. They have full access to me via text and email and phone calls. That means I'm pushing them content even though they're not asking for it. If I see something on Instagram or if I see something on YouTube that I think would benefit them, I'm sending it to them. That also means that there's a lot of touch points along the way. I send them after every single invite. I have an email marketing campaign that will push them a survey for them to fill out. And that will then string them along, if they rate me high enough, to a point where it's going to ask, can you write a Yelp review or can you write a Google review, right? So when we talk about systems, these are the successful systems that I think folks, at least in my industry, build. It's not about the one visit. It's really about having all these touch points even before your visit to far after you guys are done. I'm still communicating and pushing newsletters and emails that I've drafted in an email campaign to my clients who honestly don't need me and they're doing great.
I love that. And in fact, I definitely should start serving people after the podcast episodes. Cause I think, that's what it's all about, right? Like that's I'm reading this book right now, Great Game of Business, but it talks about how, it's like a game, like you're constantly trying to improve the score. And I think the easiest ways we can do that is we can try to improve bit by bit. And so maybe you just start out, right? You're just getting patients in and out. And then whenever I talk to doctors, some of them don't do this, and it sounds like you do, and you actually got a survey in there. So when you do a great job. And if you just simply listen to your clients, they will pave the path to success for you. And if you get those 10 out of 10 survey reviews, that's going to obviously lead to a lot more referrals. So I like that you've got this omnipresence, you've got this holistic view, and obviously SEO, I'm a big fan there. So Dr. Kevin, what kind of systems do you, or is there like a program name for that survey? Are you paying for some kind of software to do that? Did you have to set that up as an admin? How does that work, the survey thing?
What platform do I use? I know at the time, because I integrated this as soon as I got started, and my income was short to nothing because I was just starting out. I think I looked at SurveyMonkey, but they're a little too expensive. So I used, oh man, I think Webform was too expensive. So I went with like a third alternative. Honestly, I'd have to get back to you on that, what I do use. But I do know it's a free, it's a free survey service.
Does that plug into your EHR?
No, it doesn't.
Okay. So you got like, do you have like the admin send it or something? And then that's how it works?
I do. Yeah. That part is still manual. Like I'd love to integrate it back into we keep talking about systems, right? I'd love to have it automated a little bit better. My guess is that it's going to take a little cost up front, but that I've already found to be invaluable, because much like a lot of docs, I hate sales. Like I hate soliciting input and asking them for a Yelp review. And this kind of automates the process. So I don't have to go through that painful, like awkward moment. And it's still really valuable. So, understanding my flaws as a human, or things that I don't like to do, and have technology do it for me, I think that's like a big win.
You made a huge point there in terms, there's a couple different points that we can touch on, right? I want to touch more on the systems part and the holistic marketing and that leverage that you're building, because I think that's very key, right? But you mentioned sales most recently. Guys, I think everybody hates sales, right? Even the car dealers I talk to, there's very few sociopaths out there that love sales and love to cold call. And, they can be very successful. Don't get me wrong. But I think that most people, they don't like being rejected, right? They don't like convincing others of value, etc. So that's one I had to personally get over. And we're a marketing agency over here, right? We're not a doctor, but I hate sales too. In fact, I remember one of my early sales calls, one of my second companies I was starting, I said, I'm sorry, I don't like sales. I'm not a sales guy. The woman on the other line, she was like, well, sir, clearly you're not. And that's where I had to go from. And I think it's got a really bad stigma. If we can change that word sales to, just communication and teaching, it's the same thing. A great sales guy, one of the best tips I got is this: a great salesperson is a great advisor, So if you like advising people on things, then chances are you like sales, right? And most people like being seen as, oh, hey, thanks so much for that advice, etc. I think most people hate bad salespeople, which is like bad music or bad whatever. And it's just, sadly, it's the majority, right? If you look at any field, even in business or doctors, you'll have the Pareto's law, which is 80% of the people do a lot of the work, but then there's only the 20% that get the gold medal, that get paid the most, that do the best job. So that's my spiel on sales. And then to flip it back, so Kevin, it sounds like you did a fantastic job on leveraging your system, where somebody comes in, maybe from SEO or whatever, right? Maybe Instagram, and they find you. And then now after, you're sending them a survey. So you're really doing a great job leveraging your network online and offline. And it seems like you're integrating the two. And you talked about like brand positioning in there. Did you always know that, oh, I'm going to have this holistic system and I'm going to leverage my client to make sure I get, I create the most amount of value? Or is this something that just kind of happened naturally?
Yeah, it would be a huge lie if I said, oh, I had this, this great plan up front. It happens organically though. You, as an entrepreneur, if you're running your own practice, you do nothing but, lie awake trying to think of where's a revenue stream going to come through next, or what happens if one gets cut short, like during a COVID time, right? So no, this happened organically, largely because I knew when I was just sending out emails or asking people for a Yelp review, because I know word of mouth is so precious to my personal business, it wasn't getting enough response. Like people would either ignore or just say that they didn't have time. Now, if I could create it as a system instead, that's one point, that's one touch point, and then maybe I follow up in person. And I don't feel like it's bothering them unless I can gauge their body language because I'm reading your book behind you, right? If I feel like it's bothering them, I won't do it. But oftentimes it's not because they don't want to write it. Sometimes they just need to be reminded they're busy, you know, they're doing their own life, right? So my survey, we talked about systems. The survey that eventually links to a Yelp review or a Google view, that's also going to be sent to them, not as a survey, but it's also the email reminder of, hey, you know, word of mouth is hugely important to my business. I'd love it if you take a minute to write a review. That's also sent at the very end when we do a discharge, and at least at the midpoint. So when we do like a reassessment, that's sent to them again. So constantly having little touch points along the way is part of the system. That way you're also not recreating, you're not recreating the wheel. Like it's just something that you're plugging in over and over and over again.
I love that, guys. And I think you should definitely, take his survey system and implement it. In fact, I've had dreams of starting like a survey company, and like, for $10 a month, we just sell the survey system to doctors because I think it's so powerful. So yeah, I think you should definitely do this. I think some of the best companies, they grow through themselves, right? So like if you're a doctor and you just love teaching this stuff, and then that's what grows your practice, right? I was thinking about the survey company, like I'll just grow it through my survey company, But yeah, guys, these are all gold tips, right? If you just go out there, you Google SEO and you learn some of the basics and you listen to our tips, you're going to start ranking higher, right? Obviously it depends. If you're in New York or Seattle, very high population. Los Angeles, probably same thing. You're probably going to need to maybe consult with an expert a couple hours, but you can rank. And then if you just do something as simple as the surveys, it can go a long way. Kevin, before and after, when you did the survey system, what are the biggest differences did you see? Did people give you feedback that like you never expected?
Yeah, well, first there was an uptick in Yelp reviews, Google reviews for one. Second is, I actually do get honest feedback, and that in turn changes the way I practice. And that's like that's the bread and butter. That's really what I wanted it to accomplish, is because people don't feel great about giving you constructive criticism, especially if you're like the doc. They don't like to do that to your face, right? And so if there's some form of anonymity and some type of privacy that they're doing it, like drop all the barriers, try to help them drop all the barriers so they can give you as much honest feedback as possible. And I have really shifted the way that I practice to the point where that's where I'm, thinking about changing, pivoting my current business is based off all the feedback that I got. So, I think that's invaluable. This is a human-based industry where I'm giving a service to another human being. Like, it's not a product that I'm selling, so why not solicit some genuine feedback from them and change that way?
Definitely it's wise of Kevin to do. And I hope you guys, whoever doesn't use surveys out there like him, wisens up and does this. I think that in even just the sales, like when I'm talking to a potential client, right, whether it's a doctor or whatever, when I'm going over a potential campaign overview is what I call them. Like we're going to look at a campaign. People are just uncomfortable face to face to be like, oh, the price is too high, or I don't know, can this really do the job or whatever. We're just not blunt for whatever reason. I think it's like we're in today's society, maybe people think that they're rude. They don't want to feel uncomfortable, and that's obviously huge. So I think the survey thing is a great way to step away from that. And, maybe even potentially have an admin ask and say, hey, this isn't even Dr. Kevin. This is admin. I'm going to filter your response and tell Kevin what he can do better. He's always trying to improve. That's gold. Sometimes I think that even when I'm talking to my team guys, so like when you're talking to your team, I'll ask my team members, what can I do better? And they don't say anything. But if you go with them, I was reading this book, not to be the guy that says I was reading this book, but that's probably me. I'm probably like a parody over here, but it says, if you actually go to somebody and say, hey, I've been talking to my peers and here are my top 5 things I can work on. Which one of these things do you think, are true? It's like, maybe I don't listen enough. I talk too fast, whatever. Right. I interrupt. So basically you'll notice that they'll actually pick 1 or 2. And in the book, it says, if 2 people say this, then, don't kid yourself. It's true. you know, but most time people won't tell you that because they're concerned, they don't want to feel uncomfortable, et cetera. And so what's beautiful about you, Dr. Kevin, in your practice is that you're actually using that data to drive it. You know, you're actually growing through your customers and through your clients. That's awesome. So hats off there. In terms of, so you got the survey thing, I think that's a really gold tip. And then the SEO side, it sounds like you got some good basics there. In terms of Instagram or social media, what are your tactics and strategies there? Do you do all this yourself, by the way? Do you just take like one day out of the week to do all your marketing?
I do it all myself. I would honestly be like a bigger critic on myself and say I should devote more time, because I do know that it's brought me opportunities, maybe not direct leads, but it's brought me opportunities like this. And like, you know, I'm being contracted by another corporate wellness company to create a series of videos for them. And they would not have found me if it was not for a single Instagram video, right?
Wow.
So I'm not creating videos every day, and my hat's off to them who can find the time and are diligent enough to do that. But it's just an example of, it just takes one video to open up a door to more opportunity. And we were talking offline, and passive income's not a great term to use, right? But this one opportunity is going to give me a little bit of equity or profit share for every view that the video gets. You know, they will give me a cut. And, you know, for somebody that only has two hands, that can only treat one person on every hour, this is a great way to get a little bit of bump in income, is through some of these platforms. But to go back to your question, yeah, I do create all my own content. I should sit down and be diligent with my calendar that I've created for myself in terms of what kind of content to create and when to do it. But, you know, it's so easy nowadays to create an Instagram video and then just to change formatting just a little bit and post it on YouTube. So, you know, for anybody that hasn't done it yet, it's scary at first, but like anything, you know, it's just a trial and error. And again, it really doesn't have to be perfect.
100% agree. It doesn't have to, I think the thing about me is, you know, I've used just ignorance and speed to my advantage. So basically I'll blitz in there. I'm the guy who will jump into the pool and then check to see if it has water as I'm going down in there, you know, and sometimes I'll hit my head, but it will help me get the okay or good stuff, right? I'll write the rough draft essay. And then what I'll do is I'll hand it off to my team and say, okay, there's the basics, right? Go polish it up. You know, you just need to like, here are the top 3 things this needs to have. And I think you'll get a lot farther ahead with that mentality, which is a great mentality to have. And admittedly, we don't even have an Instagram video. So I'm going to definitely make one after this. And that's definitely a great step. So when I asked you, right, do you actually spend time, et cetera? I think that's a point I wanted to highlight. There's 2 ways most doctors and most business people also, by the way, when they don't get into the 7-figure plus level, which, you know, I guess I'll be just very transparent. We're actually on track to get there this year. But basically to get to that level, there's a mentality you have to have. You work in the business when that's your time, right? When you're meeting with clients, doing sales or whatever, right? Then there's on the business. And most people don't work on the business enough, right? First, right? Most people just talk about their dreams, whatever, right? We know they'll never get anything because they don't get in it and they don't have the drive, right? Then there's some people that they have the drive, but they'll just be in the car all day, but they don't work on the car. They don't work on the machine. So that's one thing I want to highlight here is it seems like Dr. Kevin has worked on the machine, and also he sees how he needs to work on the machine more and recognize that, yeah, this is a system that I'm in. You know, creating this YouTube video is a system. This podcast, that's a system as well. So we can do things to save time and then that way create more value and, you know, ultimately get paid more as you create systems under each element. So,
yeah. It's, I think it's important to understand, like there's so much technology out there for social media. They make it as easy as possible for you to create content. There are plenty of apps that you can create a bulk of content, you know, like 10 posts at once, and then the app will just automate when it distributes or when it goes live, right? And so that way you don't have to think about when to hit the send every Monday, Wednesday, or Friday. And you don't have to actually create brand new content every single day. When you have a chunk of time, and we're all busy, take that chunk of time, create a load of content, and then have everything else automated for you. Yeah.
Yeah, I have this mindset also, and I coached. So Dr. Jessica Wendling, we worked. She was in one of the episodes, and I told her. She said every Friday, what I do is I look up, my books, and I look at different things. And I told her this is gold for you. If I were you, I would never give that day up. And she was like, "What do you mean?" And I was telling her, like, keep that Friday. Maybe pick one day. It's either obviously if it's a weekend. I like to actually make Sunday like a half day, so I'm starting to work Sunday again to get my mentality right for Monday. But pick a time, and every part of that day, every week, right, you work on the business there, right? You're going to maybe review your books, you review your marketing strategy and how you can make that more valuable. So now you're working on the business. You're calculating something called customer acquisition costs and seeing, oh, I'm spending X amount of time to get X amount of patients, and this is giving me X amount of profit. And then now the numbers, they'll actually help you grow, right? You're looking at your survey and your feedback versus kind of being sporadic, right? Because if you're going to be sporadic, you'll get sporadic results. So Dr. Kevin, I think, you've obviously done a fantastic job with your practice, and you're going to keep growing and crushing it. What are the biggest challenges you face during COVID right now? And, how have you overcome them?
Yeah, I mean, I think the medical profession in general, aside from those working in the acute care system, that are, in the trenches working with COVID patients, we're all taking a hit. So first, it's, to meditate, to woo-saw a little bit and understand like it's hitting us all from top to bottom. Second is to find a way to soft pivot if possible. So my physical therapy world, especially the cash practice world, so I'm out of network with insurance. I just take cash. Most of those in my industry have soft pivoted to the telehealth virtual PT realm. And I thought that there's great value in that because you're still providing care for those that need it. You're not shutting your doors to those. But I also know that I'm not one to follow the crowd. So even though most people are doing it, maybe that creates a business opportunity to not follow them. So I continue to practice in person, following the CDC and OSHA guidelines. But I also took this time to pursue other avenues of business, right? Never again am I going to be forced to sit at home, right? So I might as well take that time to focus on a lot of these business ventures that I didn't have the time to do because I was too busy treating patients and addressing, like you said, addressing the unimportant but urgent matters, right? We need to work on business. So I decided to soft pivot, and I'm trying to, I'm in the process of launching a new arm of the business, which is bringing physical therapy to the corporate environment, to corporate offices, and for the common corporate desk worker. And that's where I'm gonna hopefully launch really strong after all this COVID stuff is done, is because I can't control COVID-19, and I'm one that's really conservative on that end. But I'm never gonna, make money off of pandemic, but I sure as hell can make money during it. So I'm gonna take this opportunity to reach outside my comfort level and do things that everybody else hasn't done and shifted towards. Because I truly believe differentiating yourself aside from good quality of care is where you're gonna get your business. There's too many great high quality practitioners out there. We're all just gonna blend together at a certain point.
For sure. Right. And so that's why you've got to think outside the box, and you got to, get on social, et cetera, or else then, modern times are just going to go ahead of you. And then you're going to wonder why, why is it hard for me? Why is Dr. X making more than me, et cetera? And sometimes you might think they make more than you, but maybe they don't even profit. Maybe they just have a really high revenue practice and they don't take away as much as they should. So it's a really holistic picture. And we talked about different aspects here today. So Dr. Kevin, if you could give the audience, I guess, one tip or one takeaway that you'd like them to implement, for themselves, what would it be?
because we've talked about different things on this podcast, like surveys and SEO and social media, I would say consistency would fall in line with kind of the theme of today's video. I know my perfect patient avatar. I know what messaging to use for them. I know what pain points they have. So I'm going to be incredibly consistent in terms of how I position myself. They're the pretty tech savvy folks of the world because I'm out in the Bay Area, and I work primarily with like mid 30-year-old tech sector. So I know I have to have a social media presence. I need to be on point in Instagram. That may not mean I'm posting every day, but I know that my Instagram content has to be geared back towards the common desk worker, not the triathlete, not the MLB pitcher. It needs to address common pain points that people have from working at their desks for so long. Then I also know my demographic is the younger age. That means they need things, they appreciate when counsel from a medical background is broken down in layman's terms. So I never like to use, medical jargon, whether I'm just writing a simple post or I'm talking with them in person. That's not the message that I'm going to deliver. So consistency, whether it means creating the brand or having a social media presence or language I use on my website, or even where I practice, I'm at like a pretty open and friendly gym. It's not like, the gym where people are dropping heavy weights with shirts cut off. That's not my population. A lot of them are fairly timid and apprehensive because they just like to stay active and healthy. They're not the ones that want to be in a gym all day. So just think from top to bottom, what's your perfect patient and what messages resonate with them, and then take some time and look at your social media presence, at your website, how you communicate in person, and make sure that all of it is really consistent. So going back, I think like consistency is the word of the day on the calendar.
I love that. And that is fantastic. I think consistency is definitely something we could all use a lot more of. Just like us, like I'm thinking about our social media efforts and I'm like, we probably need to push that harder, probably need to get a video or two and just make sure that you've got a solid basis on each. Right. And then you can start thinking about, hey, here's how I really focus on, like Dr. Kevin said, SEO was like his biggest thing, and then the surveys, et cetera. But you got to start with a good base. So awesome. Thank you guys so much. And thank you, Dr. Evan. That was another episode of Vital Doc Talk.
Thanks, man. Have a great day.
Awesome.